7 Australian titles at the age of 13.
Yeah. In sport, it's definitely an issue. The female and men, we're not on the Pro Tour, which is like half of the season.
Zahra Kell, a 6-time wakeboard world champion.
What got you into the sport? How did you start?
My dad was one of Australia's first professional wakeboarders.
She started riding at the age of 3.
My first competition was when I was about 6 years old, and I came second.
Zahra Kell, I'm 9 years old. Last year I won the Cables Nationals.
Also did snowboarding as well.
I did the Mile High, which is a professional competition. Did win some of those professional comps. I was fully competitive in both at the same time.
What does winning mean to you?
After dominating the sport for years, she took a step back from competition.
I took a break of wakeboarding because I had been doing it my whole life and I was a bit sick of it and burnt out.
Now, she's taking wakeboarding beyond the water, inspiring millions through social media.
I went from like having 10,000 followers to having 244,000. Once I found what worked, I just really stuck to that.
What are some of those things that you found that work really, really well?
Some of those things, the US Nationals, I had got concussed, like couldn't see anything 4 days before competing. All of my body was like tensed up and everything like that. Like I shouldn't have been able to wakeboard, but because I'd been doing those same exact tricks for like 3 months beforehand, every single day, my body just did it. I literally don't even know how I did it. I look back at the video, I'm like,
Stoked to be grabbing my 7th Australian title, and that was 2017. How old were you then?
oh, actually that's not a good starting question. I got no idea.
So I think you're around 13, right?
Yeah.
So 7 Australian titles at the age of 13. Run us through like how you started in the sport you're in. And by the way, you also did snowboarding as well. So wakeboarding and snowboarding. What got you into the sport? How did you start? And then what made you so good?
So my dad was a professional wakeboarder back in the day. He was one of Australia's first professional wakeboarders. So he was a surfer originally and a water skier. And then when wakeboarding came out, he decided that was the mix of the two. So he tried that and, you know, he was amazing and killed it at that. And then my parents met through water skiing and opened up a wakeboard school. So he's been a coach for my whole life. So he's coached me my whole life. I've been wakeboarding since I was 3.
Wow.
I went in between my dad's legs on his board with him when I was 1 year old. And then I went by myself when I was 3. So did that. And then I think my first competition was probably when I was about 6 years old.
Yep.
I remember I went to my first competition. I came second. And I said to my dad, I was like, I want the better prize. Like, because the girl who came first got like a life jacket and all this cool stuff. And I just got like a sticker. And I was like, I want the better prize. And then basically from then on, he just taught me how to get the better prize. It was pretty cool. Like, he was like, all right, like we can do that. And then, you know, ever since then, I sort of started going to like the Wakeboard New South Wales comps and building up to nationals and state titles and all that sort of stuff, and had a really cool sort of career in like the little grassroots comps for a while before heading overseas. So,
what was your first Australian title?
My first Australian title, I actually have no idea. It's sort of all gone into a blur just because I was so young at the time. But there was just so many cool like memories that I remember from, you know, Australian nationals and all that sort of stuff growing up. And that's all I ever knew when I was a kid. And it's just awesome to sort of have that community around. And I think I've been competitive, like very competitive from a very young age. So
Did you get that from your mum, dad, or both, you reckon?
I honestly don't know, but like I'm bad. Like it's not even just like wakeboarding, it's Monopoly, you know, like you do not want to play a card game with me. It's bad. Yeah, I don't know. I've always had that inside me really, and just had the whole, you know, win at all costs sort of mindset no matter what I'm doing, and did that throughout, you know, school and wakeboarded pretty much the whole time. You know, it was sort of hard, wasn't really at school that much, you know, bit of, you know.
In there you said about how you're hyper competitive. I saw a photo, I was scrolling through your Instagram, your Facebook. I was just sort of scrolling through it this morning while I was eating breakfast. And there's you in a moon boot. And it said, when sport turns brutal, moon boot life. What happened there?
So that actually wasn't from wakeboarding, funny story. So I was at school and we were playing soccer, and we were actually playing on the tennis courts. But you know, like where the tennis nets end, there's like a little hole in the ground.
Yep.
So they've pulled out the tennis nets so that we could play soccer on the court. I don't know if that's like a good thing that you should be doing legally at school, but anyway, so we're playing soccer on that court, and the hole was actually where like the line was. And basically I was running for the ball and it was about to go out, and I put my foot in the hole and it just went throughout, like just fully rolled my ankle, and then I like broke like 3 or 4 ligaments. So
wow.
yeah,
Okay,
that was really not fun, but it definitely wasn't from wakeboarding or snowboarding or anything. So yeah, I think I was recovering and trying to get back to wakeboarding as quick as I could, but it was funny that it happened playing soccer at school.
Oh, I found it interesting because I thought you must be hyper aggressive in the way that you play sport if you do that much injury to a foot when you're playing soccer at school.
Seriously, it's so funny. Like I used to play like OzTag and touch football and stuff like that as well. And just my thing was just always, I just got slammed all the time. Like every time I would go for like a try or anything like that, I would just fully slam myself against the ground because there's no other thought other than, you know, winning or sort of like helping the team or things like that, you know, and then I'll just absolutely destroy myself. And then after I'm like, why did I do that? Like that really hurt.
What does winning mean to you? Because obviously winning means a lot, but what does it mean to you?
Winning for me, I think, is everything. I think I completely thrive in competitions. You know, I think some people like to free ride or ride by themselves or do this or do that. And I really feel like competitions is my spot where I really feel my best and I feel at home. And I just think it's such a cool thing to be able to watch all of your hard work pay off and, you know, have setbacks and still be able to compete and win. And I just think that is so important for me, and it's like one of literally the biggest things that keeps me going for sure.
When you say that sport or winning's everything and it pushes you and it drives you, what's the difference between competing in sport versus free riding versus just having fun on the water? Like, what are the 3 differences? Do you have a tap that you turn on and off when it comes to competition, like you step it up another notch? Or is it like when you go out and you do training, in your mind is that competition there and it's you're always pushing for that next level?
Yeah, for me, I find it quite different. I think a lot of people do it differently as well within the wakeboarding industry. There's a lot of people that go super hard on the competitions and, you know, try and phase out the other stuff. But for me, I feel like regular, you know, competition training is repetitions. Like it's all about repetitions. It's doing the same run over and over and over again. Whereas, you know, free riding, I'm just having fun. I'm trying new tricks and I'm trying tricks that I wouldn't normally do before. And I'm trying to make videos or I'm making content. You know, I'm not really that concerned about it. Whereas competition riding, I'm basically doing the same thing every single day, gym straight after. It's much more serious and sort of calculated the way that I do it, and trying to, you know, sort of save my body for competition as well with injuries and stuff like that. Trying to just do as least as I can, you know, while keeping my body good, to compete as well. So definitely find it much more serious when I'm coming into competition, but some people, you know, just do it and just have fun while doing it. But, you know, I like to really lock myself in when I know that there's a competition coming up, for sure.
Describe wakeboarding to the person who doesn't know what it is, because we were talking about this before and you said like it's not a very popular sport and a lot of people don't really know about it. Now I grew up wakeboarding, so I love it. And that's how I came across your stuff, because I thought what you do is mind-blowing. Not for the average person, but it's just mind-blowing in general, even when you know what you're doing. Not that I'm good at it, but you know, I used to be able to do like a back roll to eat, but that's about it. Like,
I love it.
You know, I think
better than the average person though, for sure.
Well, I think I did more brain damage trying to do some sort of somersault on a wakeboard than anything. But
definitely.
Yeah, describe wakeboarding.
So wakeboarding is, I guess I'm sort of going to compare it to other sports, but it's basically like snowboarding. So you're on a board, you're going sideways, but you're behind a boat. And there's 2 types of wakeboarding. So there's boat wakeboarding and there's cable wakeboarding. So I'm mainly boat. So you're doing tricks across the wake, whereas cable, they have sort of features. So they call them kickers or jumps or sliders, and you can, you know, do tricks on and off, you know, sort of thing. Whereas boat is just wake to wake sort of stuff. So some people like, you know, both. Some people are more interested in cable, more interested in boat. I definitely love doing both, but I feel like I excel more at both.
Yep.
For sure.
The way I described this to my personal trainer, and I know I was talking to you before about this, he didn't really know what wakeboarding was. And I said, essentially it's like you're amazing at gymnastics, but now you've got a board strapped to your legs and then now you're on water and you're doing around how fast normally, what sort of speed you got?
It's like 22.6 is my like speed that I go miles per hour. So that I think that translates to like 34 kilometers.
Oh, no idea. Jess will be able to calculate it.
I don't know. Someone get a fact check. Something like that. Yeah.
Don't worry. Someone will be in the comments like smashing its pieces.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. So it's a quite a complicated sport. Do you do gymnastics training and things like that to be able to do that? Like, do you get on a trampoline and practice different flips and different somersaults and things like that in order to transfer across, or do you just hit the water and have a crack?
No, I think when I was younger, I definitely got a lot of my skills from trampoline. So we did a lot of like, I sort of did gymnastics when I was younger, did tumbling, trampolining, all that sort of stuff, but nothing like super serious. But I have always been sort of into like flipping and stuff like that. But with wakeboarding training when I was younger, we used to just have a trampoline with a rope hooked up to a tree.
Yep.
And then you would do all your tricks on the trampoline. And anything you learn on there, it's just obviously lower risk, which is awesome. And I feel like it just gives you the air awareness of how to do it and stuff like that. And you can do it on the trampoline, but you're actually holding the rope. So it does feel like, sort of the same thing as wakeboarding. And I feel like it's definitely a good stepping stone, before you have to actually try it on the water.
Yeah. I actually remember those days having a trampoline and having a rope attached to it. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it is a weird feeling for sure.
So injuries, there has to be a lot. How do you deal with injuries? How do you deal with, like, I just remember growing up and doing a lot of water skiing, and I love barefooting.
Yeah.
And barefooting was, you go on behind the boat, it's very quick.
You get smashed, don't you, on barefooting?
I actually found I did more damage wakeboarding than what I did barefooting.
That's funny.
For some weird reason, I think because when you're barefooting, by the time that you know that you're going to eat, like it's already done.
Yeah.
Whereas wakeboarding, you're up in the air and you're like, oh, this is going to hurt. And then you stiffen up, and then the next second, like, not that
more damage that way.
100%. Not that I was good though. So I just want to clarify that, like, to anyone who's listening, I wasn't a good wakeboarder. I was okay, better than the newbie.
Better than the average. The average doesn't even know what it is. So
that's true. Yeah. So I was better than the average, but probably not that good.
He's doing half a flip.
Most of the time it was literally half a flip.
Yeah.
But I just remember the amount of almost concussions, semi-concussions, ankles, knee soreness. I never did any ligament damage or anything like that, but I know that ankle injuries were always a big thing. Knee injuries were a big thing.
Yeah.
A lot of lower back, a lot of like concussions. How do you deal with all that stuff, especially when you're trying new tricks or, just trying new things?
I feel like I've been pretty lucky, touch wood. I definitely, I haven't not had injuries, that's for sure, but I've been lucky to not do something super serious. I actually did a more serious injury snowboarding than I did wakeboarding. I fractured my scapula, so my shoulder blade. They didn't know it was broken, long story, never healed, that whole thing. But when I came back to wakeboarding, I feel like overcoming injuries, it's definitely important because it's really hard. It gets in your head, like, especially if you get yourself into that mindset of, I can't do this because I'm injured, I can't do this, I can't do that. But I think a lot of the time you do have to really push through, especially as a professional athlete, So I feel like right before most of the competitions that I've won, I've done something, to my body like a few days before, and I've managed to sort of overcome it and then take a few weeks off after the competition, sort of recover and stuff like that. But I remember the World Championships last year, which I won. That was my first time winning a World Championships in the pro division. I started getting like super bad shoulder pain and I had no idea what it was. And, it was funny because it was my front shoulder, which is like the one that I do most of my tricks, like most of my stuff with, you're always holding on with your front hand no matter what. So I'm doing this or I'm doing that or whatever. I'm always moving this shoulder. And turns out I was born with like an extra bone in my shoulder and it was like rubbing against each other. And that was like right before the competition. So I was just using like all the anti-inflammatory creams and all this and that. And then before another competition, the US Nationals, I had got concussed like 4 days before competing. And I feel like it sort of depends like what degree you have a concussion to, but I was like, you're not supposed to look at blue light, you're not supposed to look at your phone, you're not supposed to do anything. So for that 5 days leading into it, I literally was just like in a dark room wearing sunglasses, and then I came out, competed and won, and then went back to being in the hotel room. So I think a lot of it is really like, a lot of it's mindset. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt. You're going to have to do it, through the pain. But I think it's just even cooler when you win, when something like that has happened. Like, I feel like, you know, after you've had so many setbacks, the win just becomes so much more special. You know what I mean? So it's definitely good. You've got to definitely overcome it. But I think push through is definitely, as an athlete, is definitely the key. But I don't condone doing that on a day-to-day. If you have the option, then definitely recover from it for sure.
Yeah. Something that Sam Frickle was talking about when we were talking to him was a lot of the injuries and then the mindset of how you deal with it. He's, you know, diving off of a 10-meter diving board.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, like, I think what did he say? He almost got a free vasectomy because he, you know, almost pushed his, you know, things up into his throat from a dive. And then getting back up on that 10-meter board and really having to get back in the right mindset and not have that fear. How do you deal with that fear? You know, you've just had the concussion or, you know, you've had shoulder pain. How do you get on the water and not let that consume your mind when you're doing your runs?
I feel like, well, like, perfect example, I had this happen to me in one of the World Series competitions. Like, in competition, I got absolutely destroyed. I got like a, I went over the front, you know, got a massive slap on my face. I like couldn't see anything for like 20 seconds. I was just like out of my mind. And this was during my competition run. And, you know, like, I'd watched all the girls before me and I knew sort of what I had to do to get into the finals. And I knew that I had to get up and I had to do the same thing that I'd just fallen on, which obviously, you know, is a fear thing. And it's definitely hard to get that mindset to do it. But my thing going into it and my thing going into it normally is get it done, the same thing that you just fell on, as quick as you possibly can before it possibly starts to get into your head. So I got up and did it straight away. Whereas if I left it to the end of my run, I probably would have overthought it and I probably wouldn't have done it again. But I fell, I got straight up, I did it again, and then I was like, all right, forget about it. It's over.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Sam said exactly the same thing.
Yeah, doing it as quick as possible. Otherwise, you get yourself into that spiral and you're like, oh, you know, I get hurt on this trick all the time, blah, 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 blah. And then it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you can try and just fall, do it again, and then you're good.
How much preparation goes into making one of these runs? So do you like, I actually have a few questions. My mind's going sort of crazy with different thought patterns, but you've just had a massive stack or a massive crash on one of your runs. You mentioned that you watch the other girls go and you know what you need to do. Do you change the game plan, or do you just stick to the game plan and hope you pull it off? Or do you go, shit, we need to get extra points, so I need to change some of the tricks that I do?
Yep.
How do you figure that out?
Well, I think everyone does it very differently. I know a lot of people that will, you know, very, very seriously watch the other people and then change what they do sort of according to that. My thing, I've sort of just always been concerned about myself, and just trying to build my run so that it's good enough to beat everyone no matter what. So then I'm just focused on landing my own run. And I know that if I do that, then it doesn't matter what they do anyway. So I used to have this thing where I couldn't watch. I literally couldn't watch the other girls and I would just do my own thing. But now I'm sort of opening up to it, you know, a little bit of watching, but not like super serious, and sort of trying to change my game plan. I think I'm definitely more focused on what I'm going to do, because if I focus on everyone else, my mind starts to go a little bit too crazy, get a little bit too nervous, and then it all gets to you. And, you know, that stuff all really matters on competition day too. So
how do you prep for a comp? So you've got the World Series coming up, or the World Championships.
Yep.
You won was it the US Nationals as well?
Yep.
A big competition like that's coming up. How do you prep for it? Like, what does a week out look like? How do you get yourself in the right mindset for that day? Run me through the flow.
Yeah, so when we're in America, we have a boat. We live on one of the lakes in Orlando, Florida. So what we do is we normally wake up in the morning, we ride, you know, when it's smooth, we try and get up early if we can. Ride, do probably, you know, do your comp run, any extra things that you sort of want to do after your comp run to hopefully like just have in the back of your head if you need them. You know, as you were saying before, if a girl goes out and does something insane, it's good to sort of have at least one or two tricks sort of just, you know, in the back of my mind, knowing that I can do them if I need to. So sort of just do that. So do my run, do a couple of things after as well. And then once we come in, we go to the gym. And then after that, like, honestly, your body is completely destroyed. Like, I do my best to try and, you know, eat healthy and recover and stuff as well, but mostly just being sore and being comfortable with being sore all the time. Like, literally waking up every morning, I feel like a zombie. Like, coming into comp week is just like hell week. Like,
I thought I'm
just-
41 now. I thought
Yeah.
that's just
No,
age.
no, because I thought that too. I was like, oh, I'll probably just get sore from wakeboarding when I'm old and whatever. But now, I feel like I'm 50, seriously. But yeah, it's a lot of repetitions. It's
Wait
the
till you're
same
50.
thing. Yeah, 100%. I don't even want to know. But yeah, it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of wakeboarding, a lot of gym, and just trying rest and recover as good as possible.
What do gym sessions look like?
Sort of depends, on what you're training for and stuff like that as well. But I just try and keep in the gym just for really just endurance and stamina and cardio and stuff like that. So I'm not super big on like lifting weights. I do really enjoy it, but I don't really need to do that, so say like for wakeboarding. But I do really just want to keep my fitness up, because I do feel like riding, I call it riding fitness, and real fitness is like a completely different thing. Like you could be so fit in the gym and then you can wakeboard for 10 minutes and you just be like you're just completely dead. Like it's a full different thing. So I also try and, build up my stamina by riding a lot as well, you know. So then by the end of it, I'm like, okay, now I know that I can do my run without, getting completely puffed out. you know? So a lot of it's stamina and endurance sort of training.
It's amazing that people think that one sport crosses over to another sport with fitness, and it's I'm like that when I go and do. I'm not like I'm a super competitive athlete or anything, but I train a lot, and if I've got to hop on a bike and ride, it's almost like excruciating because my body's just not used to it. But you do it for a little while, and then your body goes, okay, there's a transfer there, and it's. I remember growing up and my parents having some friends who were like fitness junkies and some like big muscly dudes, and they would get on like a water ski for 30 seconds. They're like,
it's so
it's just
weird.
completely different.
Yeah, it's like you could be an athlete, you could be someone who rides cyclists or bikes or anything like that, and then you go like surfing or water skiing or literally anything, and then you're just like using all of these muscles that you didn't even know existed. Like I found that when I went snowboarding sort of recently. I just went like for the weekend with my partner and his friends and stuff like that, and I went down and I was like, I forgot that these muscles existed, and I thought I was fit, and I snowboarded for the day and I was like, I am completely dead.
Yeah. How do you go with snowboarding and sponsorship? Because you obviously have some pretty major sponsors these days. From what I've seen, like there's some pretty big names. How do the sponsors go saying that you're this world champion in your sport and now you're going to go snowboarding? Do they get like a bit of a cringe going, what if you end up injured or what if you end up hurt? Like do you have to have those conversations with them, or do they sort of just let you go and do whatever you want to do? Is it something that you have in the back of your mind as well?
Yeah, I think, so I used to snowboard a lot more than I do now. I was fully competitive in both at the same time. But I ended up having to quit snowboarding because it wasn't having to quit snowboarding, but it was having to quit one of them, because also it's very hard to be amazing at two sports, but it's also very hard to be amazing at two sports that are in different seasons as well. One's summer, one's winter, one I'm supposed to be in America, one I'm supposed to be in Australia. Like it was just all like, I couldn't possibly get to everything that I needed to be able to get to. But when I was snowboarding, it was cool. I sort of had a lot of sponsors that were, say mainly snowboarding or mainly wakeboarding, but they were still really happy that I was doing both and promoting the brand throughout both, because a lot of the brands weren't like, it's not always a snowboard brand or a wakeboard brand. It could be, Oakley or Skull Candy or Rockstar or something, they sort of do come across to both of them as well. So yeah, but when I had to go to wakeboarding, I sort of decided, I think I let the fear get to me with snowboarding a little bit after breaking my shoulder. I did. It was so funny. Like I used to do like 70 feet, like 80 feet jumps and do all these spins and stuff like that. And then when I ended up hurting myself, the rail was like this far off the ground. Like it was just crazy. But I think snowboarding is definitely much more easier, I guess, to get hurt because it's hard. It's like concrete. Yeah. Like people think snow is like fluffy, like powder, and I'm like, have you ever been to like Australian snow? Like it's like ice, like, so definitely think the fear sort of got to me with snowboarding a little bit. And also I do like summer. We always have lived on the river. My dad was a wakeboard coach. Like it all sort of just went in that direction, and then I just put everything that I had into wakeboarding. Yeah.
I was sitting there with Jess this morning and we're just looking through, I was going through your socials and stuff, just prepping for today. And I said to Jess, like, Zahra also snowboarded. Like, that's amazing. And Jess said, like, what, as a hobby? And I was like, no, like, legitimately, you like made the Australian team, I believe, and all that sort of stuff. And then I showed some of the jumps and she went, like, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
So you were like a proper high level snowboarder as well.
Yeah, I did like mostly probably the Australian Junior Series, which is basically their version of Australian Nationals sort of thing. And I won in slopestyle, boardercross and half pipe. So slopestyle is obviously like the tricks and the jumps, and I think that's definitely helped me with air awareness and stuff with wakeboarding as well. Boardercross is racing, and then half pipe is also tricks. I'm sure you've seen all that in the Olympics as well. But yeah, so I did that for a while. I did the Mile High, which is a professional competition. I think I only really competed professionally in snowboarding for about a year, but I did win some of those professional comps, so it was cool. I had a really cool, fun time, with a career in snowboarding. It was absolutely amazing, but definitely a lot scarier, I feel like, than wakeboarding for sure.
Really, I think like anyone who's listening to this now as well, you said about snowboarding being the snow being puffy.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really understands how hard water is until you actually hit it from height like you do as well. The height that you jump across a wake, when something goes bad, it goes bad pretty quick. It's like hitting concrete.
It's pretty crazy. I feel like the worst is like, it's not really like, people think the worst would be like, oh, going up and then landing on your head. Like, that's not painful. What's painful is when you land and the edge of your board catches and then you just go boom. Like, you just get absolutely slapped, because it's much quicker than you would if it's just you just falling from down here. It's like kaboom.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I remember those days.
It literally feels like concrete when you hit it correctly.
I think any new wakeboarder sort of knows that experience where you're going along and the front lip just grabs and the next second you just flip straight onto your head. It hurts a lot. What gives you some form of balance in life? Like, do you think that lifestyle balance is important to you? Do you just integrate the things that you enjoy doing? How do you sort of think through the process of life and balance and integration and enjoyment and all those sort of things?
Absolutely. I feel as if, when it's this season for me, which is technically like early March to like September, which is it's a long time. It's like 8 months. That's pretty full on. Like, that's pretty mainly wakeboarding and gym. And I try to, hang out with my friends as much as I can and stuff throughout that time, but that's very sort of wakeboarding related. And then I do really take the time off when I have the off season, which is over Christmas and New Year's and everything like that. I try to really hang out with friends, hang out with family, sort of forget about it a little bit, have a break, sort of calm down sort of thing. But definitely, like, when I'm wakeboarding, I do like to integrate my hobbies into there a lot. I'm like in love with fishing. It's so funny. But I do that all the time. It's really good because it's on the water also, so don't really have to do much different. I like colouring in, like certain type of colouring in, not just like normal. It's like Cocoa Wire, it's called. It's famous on TikTok, so look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, so I like to integrate those sort of things into like my season. But when I'm in the off season, that's when I actually hang out with friends, hang out with family, try and relax, try and sort of forget about it for a little bit and just become a normal person for a little bit. So
in off season, how often do you wakeboard? Is it still a daily thing?
It really depends. If my body is good and I've got no injuries and everything, then I definitely would probably wakeboard a couple of times a week. But, I think most off seasons, my body is like just made it to the end of the season. So it's like a lot of, body recovery sort of stuff before getting back to properly riding, Definitely at least a few weeks of, stretching and sauna and this and, ice bath and just making sure that I've actually rested my body before starting a whole nother 8-month stint, really. So
what type of supplementation and nutrition and things like that do you focus on when you're in season to aid with that recovery? What does that look like?
I try and do the best I can, but if I'm being 100% honest, I'm really not the most healthy person you've ever met.
Oh, we'll cut that out for sponsors.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not very, I like to eat healthy. Like, I do enjoy eating healthy, but I'm not very good with supplements and like rest and recovery as much as I should be. I'm starting to get into it now though. Like, I used to hate the sauna. I used to hate the ice bath. I still hate the ice bath. It's very scary for me. But I love the sauna now. And there's like a lot of things that I've learned to enjoy throughout that time. I think definitely sauna, definitely resting, trying to eat just like normal healthy food. But I don't follow a strict diet or anything like that, because I do find that it just, my whole life will become, I feel like, a little bit too calculated. I feel like I have to be free in some way. So yep. I just train as hard as I can, go to the gym, wakeboard, and then I just try and overall be healthy.
How often do you use visualization before you go into competition or when you're trying new tricks? Like, what are the methodologies that you use to get yourself in the right state of mind before especially trying something new?
Yep.
And the reason why I ask is because, like Sam, you're going from a huge height. and you're also doing 30, 40 kilometers an hour behind a boat with a board strapped on your feet, and you got to do gymnastics as well.
Yeah.
How do you prep yourself mentally for that new trick?
I think for me, definitely visualization is key. Like, you know, I have to come at it like I've already landed it. You know, one thing that my boyfriend taught me, you know, a lot of things when it came to sort of mindset and being competitive and stuff like that. He was always saying that, like, you have to win before you win. And you do. You literally have to think, I've already won, like this competition's over, or this trick's already landed. Like, you know, you have to think like that, and you have to think positively to be able to have the confidence to actually go forward and do it. So I think definitely visualization, you know, it's already happened. I know I'm amazing. I know I can do this, you know, that sort of thing. And I think that definitely helps as much as it possibly can. But I think it's more important than people think, for sure.
Yeah. What about self-talk? How do you self-talk yourself through things when you've just had a massive failure, or, you know, you've injured yourself? You said you just get back on and have another crack. But what happens when that doesn't work out and you're trying a new trick? You've been on the water for a fair while.
Yeah.
Things aren't working out. How do you talk yourself back through that to keep getting out there and doing it again?
I think I used to get a lot more sort of frustrated and worked up than I used to. You know, definitely used to get a little bit like that. But now I feel like I'm a lot more mature, and I sort of know that just happens. Life just happens, and you have to sort of be able to deal with it and overcome that sort of thing. So definitely, you know, when I have a hard stack and then I keep stacking, it definitely gets in my head, or it definitely tries to anyway. But I do my best to try and just, if I'm having a really bad time and I know that it's just not going to work that day, I just know my body's limits, and I'm like, all right, it's not going to work today. And then I just stop, and then I'll just try again tomorrow, or I'll try again in the afternoon. But I'm not just going to keep pushing myself through, not pushing myself through like something that's hard, but something I know 100% is not going to work. My body is completely tired. I've just gotten absolutely smashed 3 times in a row. I know it's not going to work right now. Try again this afternoon. But I never like just go, oh, it's not going to work, whatever, just leave it. I just leave it to a separate time, because I know that I need to come at it with a good mindset. Because if I don't start with a good mindset and I'm already sort of spiraling in that bad zone, I just feel like it's not going to get much better, really.
That's I think a really awesome way of framing your own mindset. Do you feel like when you go through those stages and you're practicing something, it doesn't work, and you just keep trying to get it, and then one day it's almost like it just clicks, and then after that it's almost like you can't fuck it up?
Definitely. I feel like, especially with tricks, I feel like some of them have a certain sort of flow. Like one time you'll do it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how it's supposed to be done. But then sometimes you'll go out there and it just feels like weird and robotic, and like it'll feel like the boat's going really fast, or, you know, you can feel like weird stuff on the water and like whatever. But I feel like you just have to sort of remember how it felt in that moment where you did it really good, and then you have to think, okay, that's how I've got to do it, you know. And when I sort of am trying and I'm failing and all this sorts of stuff, I try and just, every single time I do the trick, I try and think of something different, think of a different, you know, cue or a different way to do it, or just trying all of these different things until it works. And then once I find that one that works, I just hone in on that.
Okay. The reason why I asked that question is we adopted a puppy. Well, she's 2 years old. And when I've been trying to train her, you train her and it's like she's a pain in the ass, and you just keep honing the same, like you'll keep saying the same thing. And it just doesn't seem to click. And then one day we take it for a walk, and the next second it's just like bang, completely different dog. And you go, shit, it's all of this. There's all of this build up of frustration and everything, and you keep doing the same thing, and then it just clicks. And it reminds me of, there's this video where there's this engineer, and I can't remember what it's called, but I think he's an engineer or a physicist. Anyway, he's got this science channel. They create a bike where when you turn the steering wheel, it's on gears, and the bike moves a different way. So when you turn to the handlebars to the right, the wheel moves to the left.
Yep.
And he shows you the de-learning that has to happen because of your experience of already riding a bike.
Yep.
And he tries and nothing works. And then all of a sudden this one day he goes, I just got on the bike and went to ride it, and it's almost like bang, it just clicks.
100%.
But then he went back and he tried to ride a different bike, a standard bike, and he couldn't ride it. It was all weird. And then he goes, whoop, there it is. And it just clicked, and he starts riding it. And then he showed you him training his little son. His son was like 3 or 4. And he told his son that if he learned how to ride it, he would be able to meet an astronaut.
Yeah.
Which he did do. But he said the little son was trying, and then you just notice like it just clicks in his head. And so it just reminds me, and the reason why I wanted to ask a professional athlete is if that pattern is true as well in sport, where learning, frustration, it's not working, bang, it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really feel like repetition is like the biggest key in, becoming, I guess, consistent or on something or learning something new. I feel like just doing it consistently is the only way that I've gotten to where I am, or any of the amazing wakeboarders have gotten to where they are, is doing the same tricks every time. And even if, you're falling or you're doing this or whatever, it's just the muscle memory of actually doing the trick. And, if it's not working, as I said before, I try and tell myself different things every time until I find what works. But actually just doing that repetition is so important. I would say it's like the most important thing that I've learned how to do. And even though some people don't enjoy doing the same thing, every single time, like it really does work. And as you said before, like it will literally get to that point where it will click, and not even just in your head, but your body almost goes on like autopilot because it knows. Like, and I feel like that's what happened at US Nationals when I was concussed. Like I couldn't even see anything. Like all of my body was like all like tensed up and everything like that. Like I shouldn't have been able to wakeboard, but because I'd been doing those same exact tricks for like 3 months beforehand every single day, my body just did it. I literally don't even know how I did it. I don't remember. I look back at the video and I'm like, I don't know how it happened. But because of that repetition, you just have that muscle memory and that mindset of doing the same thing.
Do you think
it just happens sometimes?
Do you think that being a woman in sports has an effect? Like, have you found that there's a difference between being a male and a female competing in wakeboarding, or do you find that the males are quite open to having females as well, pushing the limits? And, I remember back when we were wakeboarding, and as I mentioned before, when we were chatting, I grew up with some friends who were pro wakeboard riders. Well, I guess back when you say pro, back in the day, it wasn't really pro. I mean, you were talking about your diet. I think they lived on a diet of bongs and beer. But, back then, if there was a woman who was like pushing to try to do something, I mean, I don't even think back then, maybe females were doing a basic back roll or maybe a tantrum. Yeah. That was about it. Like if a woman did any sort of flip, it was like mind blowing.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know that the boys were like, they were so stoked to see a woman on the water. Like it was just cool. Has that changed, or do you find that there's a lot of competition between males and females, or do you find that it's just never really been an issue?
I feel like in sport, it's definitely sort of an issue, the female and men, in sport thing, like being able to accept like the female in sports. But I feel honestly that wakeboarding is a really good example of a sport that's actually doing quite well at it. Like we have equal prize money, and I think, there's definitely a couple of things that could do with improvement. Like we're not on the Pro Tour, which is like basically half of the season. So they get a full extra like 4 competitions, I think it is, compared to like what we do. But other than that, wakeboarding is like a really good example of someone who's doing quite well with being, even with female and men and equal prize money and being both posted on social medias all the time. There's girls comps. Like I do feel like wakeboarding is doing quite well at it, but I know that there was a time where it wasn't so much like that. But I'm definitely grateful to be a part of like how it is now. The guys are very accepting of us and how much we're willing to push it. I feel like the females these days are just pushing it to insane levels. And I feel like that gives us the respect because we are trying our hardest. Like I am putting in so much work, just as much work as you guys are as well. So I think it's really cool that that's starting to be recognized a lot more, for sure. I
was going to say, you said you guys. I'm sitting on the couch with a bag of Cheetos watching you guys do it. I'm not doing anything. But that's really good to hear. I really struggle with that because I hear a lot of this stuff of, women in sports and women in the workplace and things like that. But I've just personally never really experienced it, so I don't get to see it. Like most of my mates in business, if a woman's crushing it, then they're going to get the job. Like they don't give a they just want them to perform. But that's why I ask, because I know that I have been around some women who find it really, really hard in certain areas. Do you feel like sponsors are as open and as accepting as well? Like, have you ever found any issues with that?
I haven't really found any issues with the female and male thing. Like when it comes to sponsors, I feel like the sponsors are really in it for who you are as a person. Well, like obviously, there's some that hasn't happened to everyone perfectly, but in my experience, I've had a great experience with just, being there for my personality and who I am sort of thing. So, I think that that's really good, but I can definitely see what you're saying about the whole female and male, being even thing in workplaces or in sports. Like, I have seen it happen to other people, in different sports, but personally I've had a really good experience with it, which has been good.
That's cool. It's good. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Especially when you're pushing as hard as what you do as well. Let's jump across to social media. Yeah. So when I looked up your name, I got on Google and I was like, I'm going to do some research, and it came up internet celebrity.
I know,
So
I saw that.
you're not even a professional athlete.
I know, it was so funny. I remember I don't know who did it, but I think it was my boyfriend looked me up like one day just randomly on Google. He was like, do you know what says internet personality or something like that? And I was like, no way. Because I don't think it used to come up with athlete. I think it just had nothing because I wasn't that guy yet. I wasn't popular yet. But yeah, and then it said internet celebrity and I was like, okay, I might be getting somewhere.
All those years of hard work and training, and all you had to do was film some TikToks, eh?
I know. It should say TikTok star.
I know.
Funny.
So your social media, that's how I came across you.
Yeah.
I've been out of the wakeboarding scene for a while. Like I haven't had time. I don't even watch any sport really. Yeah. Actually, I feel like I'm trying to give the reason why I don't watch sport. But I haven't really watched sport for a long time, but I see things on like social media and things like that. Yeah. Like I followed Corey Tunison for a while. Yeah. Which actually, that's another path I want to go down, is Australian athletes in wakeboarding, because we seem to be doing a great job.
We're really good. We're very good.
We'll leave that to after the TikTok and social media conversation. But social media, how do you find being I guess you could say, a celebrity on social media? How does that impact wakeboarding? Do you feel like it takes away from the sport? Do you feel like it adds to the sport from your perspective? Not the sport as a whole, but from what you do.
From my perspective, I think, as we were talking about before, how wakeboarding isn't quite as big as these other sports such as surfing or snowboarding. I really love being able to post it on social media and I feel like showcasing it to, people who wouldn't normally see wakeboarding. Like, I think that's definitely my goal with social media, is to open it up to a whole new audience and hopefully make wakeboarding as big as possible. I think it's a really good thing that social media has come out, and I think it's been really good for the sport. And not just myself, there's a bunch of other creators that are, targeting that audience who's never seen wakeboarding before. And I can really start to see that people are, enjoying it and looking at it more and, following us and all that sort of stuff, which I think is really cool. And I think if anything, it's just more exposure. Like, social media is definitely key these days, especially if you want to grow something as well. So it's been really good, and I enjoy it. It motivates me to, post a video all the time, and I actually really enjoy doing social media and editing and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's actually really fun. So.
You do some really, really cool edits. I remember back in the day, and this goes to show you my age, I remember when we first started wakeboarding, there was really nothing apart from maybe you'd see a little bit on X Games every now and again if they broadcast it, which was sort of a bit of a hit and miss. But we had to go to the water ski shop and buy, do you remember Detention with Sean Murray? Yeah. Did you ever grow up watching that?
Yeah, I saw that, yes.
Yeah, so we would have to buy these VHS tapes, and me and the mates would all sit around watching these old school VHSs, and then we'd get all amped up and hop behind the boat and just try, because there was like nothing really to show us how to do anything, or
not tutorials or anything. It's just movies and games, and
that's all it was. So with your social media, how do you find time to do that, and how do you think through that process? And part of the reason why I ask that question is there are a lot of business owners that I work with, or there are athletes as well that I work with, and a lot of them feel like it takes away from their core thing that they do. Like, if they're a business owner, social media is just sort of there. Yeah. It's not something that they really prioritize, or it's not something that they think that they can get attention from, or they can't see how they can monetize it.
Yeah.
How did you think through that process to just go, this is part of what I do?
I think when I decided to come back to wakeboarding, so I actually quit for a few years, and then I came back in start of 2023. So
you retired at what age?
Yeah, like young. But when I came back, like throughout that time, that was when TikTok and Instagram and all that blew up. So I was on social media for the whole like time that I was off wakeboarding. And then when I came back, I think before I started posting anything, I had like 10,000 followers just from like just posting, here's this comp, whatever. But I wasn't really properly sort of creating content. But I'd just seen so many other people do it on TikTok and Instagram and just get traction on whatever it is that they're doing, if it's cooking or cleaning or their sport or whatever. And I just thought it was so cool. And I think that like social media is so important, not just for wakeboarding, but for like my personality and my personal brand. I feel like no matter what I do, I'm better off having a following than not having a following. And I feel like it's cool to be able to bring those people along for whatever I decide to do. So for me, I love social media, and I feel like it's really important to grow.
I notice a lot of your videos, you don't really spend a lot of time talking about the experience of being an athlete.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're going to bring in? And do you feel like that's going to help impact the next generation of young girls coming through in sport? Or is that something that you're just not, talking's not your thing and you just want to demonstrate
I'm not the best at talking on camera, but that's definitely not why I do it. Like, I think I do want to integrate being a little bit more personal onto my feed and onto my Instagram and stuff as well. But I do find, like, with the whole, like, getting negativity from social media and stuff like that, I feel really bad for those people who are super, super personal on there, because I feel like the hate is and the negativity is very actually, directed towards them and their views and what they talk about and what they do day to day. Whereas I feel like for me, because it's pretty much just about my sport, I don't feel like I'm sort of that as vulnerable, as if I was to be personal every day. Come along with me as I do this, and this every single day. I feel like the hate and the negativity and the bad stuff that comes from social media, sometimes I feel like that becomes a lot more targeted if you get super personal. So I'm sort of trying to keep my personal and social media life a little bit separate, but it's a fine line. I definitely want to be able to come a bit more towards personal stuff as well. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be really, really cool. Something that Alex Hormozi talks about is just documenting. Don't teach people, just document.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be really cool watching a world champion athlete just on their daily life. And,
Absolutely.
No one can really tell you that you diet shit when that's the thing that's helping you win championships.
True,
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are a certain type of personality that comes across on social media and has to feel like they give feedback to everyone and all that negativity and all that type of stuff? Like, have you found that being on social media?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting the way that I think it's just the fact that, they're behind a screen. They feel like they can say whatever they sort of want to. But in my experience, like, I've had pretty good, comments and followers and stuff like that. Like, obviously there's definitely been times where I've gotten attacked for just, I don't even know what, just like stupid stuff.
You woke up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, why are you wearing this, or why are you doing that, or whatever. But I feel like a really important thing for, like, stopping that sort of negativity spiral, like, one thing that my boyfriend told me when I started to tell him, I was like, there was this one video and it started to get just like hate comments all the time, like to the point where TikTok gave me a notification and it was like, turn off negative comments, ? And I was like, okay, cool, sweet. So when I started to get those, he just said, like, you need to totally not let that get to you, because as soon as you let it get to you, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you start thinking, oh, are they right, or this or that or whatever. So I think definitely trying to keep yourself separate from that is the best thing you can do. But you can't stop what people say. I think you just have to realize that it's more about them than it is what they're actually saying about you. You don't need to actually think, oh, does my life jacket actually look bad? Does this actually look bad? Whatever. I think it's more about what they have to say, really.
I've noticed, and by the way, I wish at your age, you're 21 now.
Yeah.
At 21, I wish I had thought like that, because, negative comments and stuff like that used to affect me quite a lot, especially when I started back on Facebook back in the day. Whereas these days, I always think about how interesting it is that I've been doing this now. I've been in the coaching space for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've never had a negative experience with someone when I've been out and about.
Yeah.
And I've even had people who have gone to town on me for whatever reason, just through normally bullshit or something like that, or someone heard something from somebody else and it's like Chinese whispers, and then they go to town on me on social media.
Yeah.
I'll see those same people out and about, and they say hi and they smile and they, oh, how are you? And then
it just shows that it's all about the screen.
It is
all about behind the screen.
And so I always think, like, what's going on in that person's life where they think that that's okay, or what's going on for them in their own mind that makes them so insecure that they feel like it gives them the confidence that they need to point out that sort of stuff.
100%. You have to be aware of it too, because if you're not aware of that, it's so easy for it to, for you to let it get to you. But if you need to know that it's not you, and it's, they're probably commenting that same hate on 10 people's videos, they've got to know that it's not actually your specific video that's upsetting them. So
yeah, I guess seeing a lot of other people that are achieving when you feel like you're not. I mean, you're sitting there scrolling through social media, right? So you're not doing anything in that moment.
Yeah.
I guess it impacts them in a way where they feel insecure or whatever. What do you think makes Australians so good at wakeboarding? Like, we've had a lot of world champions, from what I understand. I think, is it pretty much America and Australia dominate the wakeboarding scene?
Pretty much. I guess as like always on the top of the podium, sort of always winning the series and stuff. It seems to be a lot of Australia and America. America, it's definitely bigger over there. Like a lot of the sponsorships, the sponsors, headquarters and everything like that, they're all over there. A lot of the competitions are over there, sort of thing. But Australia, I think we just have had some incredible wakeboarders from the beginning, which made amazing coaches. We've got really good coaches like my dad, but also there's so many other amazing coaches in Australia and good waterways, and it's always hot. And, so it all sort of starts to come together a little bit for Australia. And we've just had that sort of wakeboarding community from the get-go. I think we've always had, the Wakeboard New South Wales comps, and we've got Wakeboard Vic and Wakeboard Taz and all this sort of stuff. And we come together for nationals. And I think like the bigger that the community is, the more it motivates people to want to get better and, that sort of thing. So I think that community has really helped Australia become like literally the best, if not second best to America as well. So I think Australia and America are definitely sort of the main ones, but there is some countries that you wouldn't think of. Like Italy is amazing at wakeboarding. Who's the other one? Japan's really good at wakeboarding. There's a couple of like countries that you're like, wow, like you guys are insane, sort of thing. But I think overall, and one that we've been killing it for a long time, is definitely Australia, which is crazy, but we're quite good for sure.
Who are the people that when you were growing up you used to look up to in the wakeboarding sort of scene, and then how does it feel now being at the top of your game? How do you see those relationships, and like how have you progressed with those people that you look up to?
It's really cool. I used to look up to I still do, but used to look up to Harley Clifford a lot, which is really cool because we're actually on the same team now, so we're both on Liquid Force. So it's just cool to like see that mindset just change from like, oh my gosh, like you're my idol, to like, oh they're like fully my friend, So it's just really cool to grow up and be able to sort of actually hang out with these people that I look up to, and Corey as well, and just they're full normal people, and it's just cool to like be on the same level as all they are in the professional sort of space. So it's awesome to be around them all the time normally, rather than like, oh my God, it's Harley Clifford, you know what I mean? So it becomes a very different sort of perspective for sure.
Harley's won 5
Oh, he's
world
like
championship.
100. Probably 100. I don't even know, but it would be a lot. It would be a lot.
I think he was one of those guys who posted negative shit on my social media.
Oh, really?
I think I pissed him off one day with some of the posts. I was just trying new things, like to see how we can sort of. Something that I've learned on social media is, especially with males who are high performers, and they're our market, right? So I don't work with, I'm struggling. I just feel shit about life. They're not our clientele. My clientele are like, I'm that business owner that pushes myself too hard.
Yeah.
When I rest, I beat myself up. I feel guilty because I'm not working hard enough. They're working 100 hours a week. So our community is called the Driven Mofos. So they're all driven mofos.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned is, for a lot of those types of people, in order to get through to them, sometimes you've got to really push their buttons, because that's the thing that's going to sit inside their mind and just occupy and make them think about what's going on. And I can't remember what the post was, but it definitely pissed off Harley Clifford because he got in there and he was like,
that's hilarious.
And which was weird because I wanted to get it. I've been wanting to get him on the podcast for years, and having been a coach as well to a lot of pro athletes and stuff like that, I was like, I'd love to work with Harley and Corey, and Corey was good. We've spoken back and forward over the years, but the first time
that's
I think
so funny.
he communicated with me was in one of my comments being pissed off. And then I messaged him and I was like, hey, I hope I didn't piss you off too much with it. And just never heard back from him. I was like, I must have upset him somehow. I might be on his block list. I don't know.
That's so funny. I think everyone just has their different like buttons, but that's hilarious.
Everyone has their days as well.
For sure.
So what's next for you? What does the career progression look like? What are the big goals coming up? Is it just to dominate the sport and put our world titles out of reach for anyone else?
Definitely the goal for sure. But definitely want to keep building my social media, and I definitely want to start to have a bit more of a personal audience, as we were talking about before as well. So I want to be able to sort of be that gap between influencer and athlete as well, because I feel like there's athlete social medias and then there's influencer social medias. So there's sort of two different things, and I want to try and merge them a little bit more. So definitely want to do that. I want to, keep winning as much as I possibly can. The World Series is sort of the main thing that we have our eyes set on at the moment. So there's basically 4 each year. So there's Moomba, which is coming up in about a week. And then we've got the 3 other ones, which are over in America. So definitely those, and hopefully win the whole series again, because that's what I've done for the last 2 years since I came back. I won the series twice. So definitely hoping to make that 3 times. But yeah, just that sort of stuff and just getting better every day.
That's awesome. With social media, I noticed that you have sort of figured out what hooks and things like that work.
For sure.
Going back and watching some of your older content, you'd just post like these videos of you wakeboarding, which I found cool because I love the sport.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was that a lot of your videos now, and then I see other females in the sport as well doing the same thing, where it's like you standing on the back of the boat, zipping up your life jacket, and then it cuts.
Yeah.
How do you look at your social media to find out what works, what doesn't work, and then how do you think through that process of growing what you post?
Yeah, it's funny. When I started sort of like beforehand, I was wakeboarding before I quit. I was just doing sort of just whatever on social media. I didn't really care about it as much just because I wasn't so, invested in it. I think like I took a break of wakeboarding because I had been doing it my whole life and I was a bit sick of it and burnt out and just everything I'd known was wakeboarding and I didn't know anything else. So I just wanted to be a normal person, normal girl, that sort of thing. So definitely didn't have the same mindset into social media as I do now. So when I came back, I talked to my boyfriend a lot about social media because he owns a business. So he's had to do all those sorts of things. So he taught me a lot of stuff and just learning as well. Like by the time I make a couple of videos, I'm like, oh, that works, that doesn't, So there's a lot of there's so many little things that you wouldn't think of in Instagram that work and some things don't or, but definitely just learning as I go. And I think the first video that I posted like that went viral. So then I was like, oh, that worked. And then started to sort of do the same content. And then it literally just kept going viral over and over and over and over again. And it's a good type of reel for growth for sure. But it's definitely hoping to get more personal sort of in the future. But I went from having 10,000 followers when I came back to having 100,000 in the first year. And then in the second year, I went from 100,000 to 244,000. So it's worked really well. But once I found, what worked, I just really sort of stuck to that just because I knew that people enjoyed that. And I was getting cool comments on there as well. Not even just about oh, wow, awesome, whatever. But people saying, oh, I want to try this or, that sort of thing. So I really felt like I was getting people into it. And I just think that the way that my videos are structured at the moment, my goal is to keep femininity within sport. I don't want people to feel like they have to sacrifice, anything of who they are to actually come into sport. So I wanted to show I'm a girl, I do my nails, I do my fake tan, I do my hair, all that sort of stuff. I wanted to show that, but also you can still do this, So I just think it's really cool to be able to show off that both is possible and yeah.
That's very cool. What are some of those things, like you mentioned that there are some little things that you found that work really, really well. What are some of those things?
Some of those things I would say is, there's literally countless of them. But one of them would always be editing on Instagram rather than on CapCut.
Yep.
Hates it. So basically they know when you use their features. So as many features as you can use. That's another one as well. So always, tagging people, hashtag, add location, add whatever it says on there, just press it. Just as many, they want you to use all the features that you possibly can. So just little ins and outs and things like that. And then I also find that, people's attention spans have gotten so low now that I chop my videos super short. My tricks are super short. It's literally 1.5 seconds is the trick rather than, go out, go in, do the trick, this, that, whatever. I've sort of worked out when people's minds sort of switched off and you have to put something more engaging straight after it. So I think definitely those two things and then also just being quick. You can't always be posting, 5-minute long content and it will work perfectly. And sometimes it will. Honestly, I wish that my content could work like that. But how mine's sort of set up and how the things that I've learnt to work for me has just been keep people sort of interested and doing stuff quicker, I think.
That's what I find is really, really hard because I love these types of conversations that are a bit longer and we find we get really good traction on audio platforms because people will be driving around listening to probably this podcast.
Exactly.
We find it really, really hard to try to get traction on things like YouTube because you put a bit of longer form on there and people are waiting for something exciting to happen and some bings and bops and bams.
I know, it's crazy. People need attention all the time. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And then TikTok, I spend 20 minutes, half an hour some nights flicking through and my brain's just wired, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now you said boyfriend, so you've got a relationship. How does that work when you've got travel? You live part of the year in Orlando. How do you figure all that stuff out and make a relationship work? And then he's got a business as well.
Yeah.
How does all that stuff work and how do you manage your time?
He's honestly been the best thing that's ever happened to me, because he has taught me so much, like not within, you know, obviously the sport, but within business. And, you know, he studies a lot of the social media and stuff like that in his spare time as well. So it's just been like incredibly helpful. And also he works for himself, so it's much easier to be able to go overseas than someone having to put in leave to go overseas and all that sort of thing. So he's like the perfect boyfriend. I'm not saying that it would work for everyone, but for me it has worked so amazingly well. And it's been good, you know, him coming overseas and stuff like that, because he's getting to see places that he wouldn't normally see because of what I'm doing as well. So I think wakeboarding like just takes us some amazing places, and it's amazing that he can actually come along, because I know that not everyone can, but if you can make your life like that, it's really cool to be able to experience it together for sure.
That's awesome. Does he like fishing as well?
He loves fishing. We both love fishing. We're addicted. We're going to get some more rods and stuff when we get to America, and we just fish in the lake when we're not wakeboarding.
That's awesome.
It's so fun.
Now, finally, I know we've got to start wrapping up soon, but I've noticed you spend a fair bit of time with family. How important is family, and how have you sort of integrated that into your life? You know, your dad was your coach. Does he still coach you? Does he drive the boat every day? Like, you know, how does that all work? And then does he still run the wakeboarding school? And, you know, is he traveling with you as well? How does that all work?
They literally do everything for me. Like having a good support team is the best thing that I could ever ask for. So, you know, my mum and my dad and my partner have been the best thing ever. So my mum and dad, they still run the wakeboard school. Dad coaches me. He's always driving the boat. He's always getting the fuel, doing the lead, all the like heavy boy stuff that I don't want to do.
I like that, the boy stuff.
Literally, like I don't want to pick up the 25 kilo things, put them in the boat, you know, over and over. So he's just been awesome. He's taught me everything that I've ever known within wakeboarding. And, you know, mum as well, just being there for me with all the mental stuff and everything. It's just been so good to sort of have that good support crew. I think that's definitely the best thing that you can have going into, you know, a big career for sure.
Do you think that that's something that some athletes don't have, which then makes them struggle? Is that support network around them?
Yeah, I think that could definitely be, you know, a thing. I'm definitely so lucky to have what I have with my family and stuff like that. And I know that not everyone else does have that as well. So definitely just trying to be as grateful as possible as I can for that every day, and just knowing how much effort they put in, because especially like not everyone has it, like you said. So it's just so cool to be able to feel that they're there for me all the time, which is awesome.
That's awesome. So they travel with you as well? Do they travel all around the world to all the different comps?
So my dad, he usually comes over to America like at the start of the season. So I usually get a boat over in America, and he helps me sort of do all the trailer stuff and get it to my house and sort of load it up and like make sure it's all perfect. And then he'll stay for probably about a month or so, and then he'll come back because he's obviously got work and stuff that he's got to do here. And Mum will come back and look after the dogs and stuff, but they'll come when they can. And Dad does a lot of he drives the competitions, not all of them, but he drives some of the competitions. So sometimes they'll pay for him to come over and stuff like that, which is cool. So just whenever he can, but really it's mainly me and Ryan there the whole time.
So you said he gets the trailer and the new boat and everything like that. Do you just leave the boat in the water the whole time? Like, does it just sit there? Because I've seen like in Orlando, there's places where you can just park the boat and you just leave it out the front. And
it's funny. I don't know why the boathouses aren't such a thing in Australia, but in America, they're everywhere. Like the full boathouse, boat lift is like the only thing that people use over there. But we put it in the boat lift and make sure that it's up out of the water, and we cover it most days just so that you don't get, you know, Orlando crawlies, creepy crawlies. I don't know what goes on out there. But yeah, stuff in the boat and, you know, getting dirty and stuff like that. So we try and cover it as much as we can, but we leave it in the water because it's not like, you know, we're going to take it out, wash it, you know, go to work for the week. Like we're literally using it every single day. So we're using it every morning. So we just cover it for the afternoon so that it's not, you know, nasty when you go in the morning, and then you go in the morning, cover it, you know, that sort of thing. So
do the sponsors give you a boat every year, like a brand new one?
Yeah, it's
no
awesome.
Kidding.
It's awesome. And last year I got to design my colours, and they're saying that hopefully I'll be able to design them again this year. So it's cool to be able to sort of see like my design like come to life, which is sick.
That is absolutely wild, because those boats aren't cheap, especially like,
they're not.
You know, those types of boats are I mean, they're the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely amazing. If you have to give one piece of advice for anyone who's listening, especially a young female that, you know, either wants to do well in business or in sport, what's your advice to them?
I would honestly say, like, consistency is key. Like, just keep trying and try not to, you know, get put down if it's not working, because a lot of the time it doesn't work. I feel every competition that I have, I feel like the more setbacks that I have, the more likely I am to win. The competitions that I've had no setbacks, I haven't won. Like, it's cool, you should know that when bad things are happening, it's because something good is coming after that. And I think you just have to stick through the bad stuff and just know that one day it will just click, as we were talking about before, and it will just happen. So just keep going, for sure.
How did you develop that mindset? Like, that's very wise advice for a 21-year-old. Well, I mean, I remember when I was 21, you feel like you're old and adult and all that sort of stuff. But, from someone who's 41 now, I wish I would have listened to that advice when I was 21. Where did that come from? Is that something that your parents have just instilled in you from a young age, or is that something that you've had to learn through experience, or a bit of both?
Definitely. I think they brought me up, amazingly, but I've also feel like I've always been around older people as well, just because living at the wakeboard school, we've always had people coming in training or staying with mum and dad or this and that, or always being social and stuff, but always with older people. So I feel like I've always had that older perspective around, and I feel like I definitely grew up and started to become mature, rather than, because I didn't live my life normally how a normal kid would just go to school and hang out with people their age and stuff like that. I got a lot of wisdom and stuff from hanging out with cool, amazing athletes and stuff, but they're quite old, so it's just cool to have that perspective when I was younger, and I think that really affected like who I am now, and just understanding that's how you need to be, for sure. That's
amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending your time here. I know it was sort of like a last minute message,
no, that's okay. Thank you.
You were straight on board too. You were just like, "Yep, let's do it."
Yeah, let's do it 100%. I love it. I love
so cool. Podcasts. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, of course, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, thank you.
Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.